A loyal German shepherd visits a baby in his final moments, but what happens next stuns everyone present. In a quiet hospital room, a grieving mother says her last goodbye to her only child. The doctors have lost hope. The machines slow down, and then the old German shepherd steps forward, steadfast and unwilling to leave the baby's side. At first, it seems like a faithful farewell. But in just moments, everything takes a surprising turn. The dog starts pawing fiercely at the IV line, growling toward the empty wall, as if sensing a presence no one else can see. Nurses scramble in panic. The mother pleads for them to pay attention, but the hospital staff wants the dog gone quickly. What message is this dog desperately trying to convey? Why does he react this way? And when the truth finally unfolds, will it be too late to save the baby? Sometimes miracles don't emerge from doctors, they come on 4 legs. I'm curious, where are you watching from? Share in the comments below. And while you're here, subscribe to catch every future story. The cold, harsh glow of the pediatric ICU lights flickers over Tessa Whitaker's tired face as she sits beside her baby's crib. Her trembling fingers trace the clear plastic walls that have enclosed Ayan for the last 3 long months. The steady beep of the machines and a soft hiss of oxygen replace the lullabies she once softly sang to him. Ayan lies motionless, his tiny chest rising and falling with fragile, labored breaths. Tubes and wires envelop him, making him seem even smaller than his 6-month frame. A single curl of brown hair like his father's rests on his forehead. Tessa reaches gently through the crib's opening to brush it softly, her touch light as a feather. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispers, forcing affection into her voice despite the ache choking her throat. "Mama's here." The morning nurse Linda enters with calm efficiency, checking Ayan's vital signs and adjusting the IV. She offers Tessa a gentle pat on the shoulder, a silent message heavier than words. "The doctor will be here soon," Linda says quietly. Tessa nods, stomach twisting. She's learned to read the hospital staff's subtle signals the careful way they speak. Something's changed, not for the better. When Dr. Marshall arrives, his usual confident stride is missing. He pulls up a chair next to Tessa, and even before he speaks, her world feels like it's slipping away. "Mrs. Whitaker." He begins, voice thick with the weight of bad news. "We've tried every standard treatment we know. Ayan's condition is worsening. The infection doesn't respond to our strongest antibiotics, and his organs are failing." Tessa's fingers clutch tightly at her worn jeans. "There has to be something else," she pleads. "Dr. Marshall's sorrow is real. We've consulted specialists across the country. At this stage, all we can do is keep him comfortable." "No." The word escapes her lips, sharp and desperate. "He's a fighter. He's come this far. I know this is hard," Dr. Marshall says softly. "But we need to discuss comfort care options now." Tessa gazed down at her son. Memories rushing through her like a tidal wave the very first time he smiled. Those tiny fingers clasping hers, and the bright spark in his eyes whenever Kaiser came around. Kaiser, the gentle German shepherd who had been a comforting presence in the hospital's therapy program, had instantly connected with Ayan. Just the dog's presence soothed the baby, calming his little heart and improving his vitals with every visit. Kaiser, Tessa whispered, "Could we bring Kaiser to see him? He always lit up when that dog was near." Dr. Marshall's face softened with empathy. That would require approval from hospital administration, especially under the circumstances right now. The therapy program had been shut down last month due to budget cuts. "Please," Tessa begged quietly. "Just one visit. It might lift his spirits, give him a little peace. I'll talk to Dr. Keene," he promised, though his voice was heavy with doubt. Hours dragged on as Tessa waited, her whispers filled with hope, and her heart silently pleading. The sharp click of heels announced Dr. Mallory Keene's arrival, and Tessa straightened, drawing on every ounce of courage. Dr. Keene stood firmly at the edge of Ayan's crib, her sleek suit and immaculate hair a stark contrast to Tessa's weary form. "Mrs. Whitaker, Dr. Marshall told me about your request." "Please," Tessa began, but Dr. Keene raised a perfectly manicured hand to pause her. "We're preparing for a major donor event next week," she explained. "The entire ward must follow strict protocols. Bringing an animal here, even a former therapy dog, introduces risks we cannot afford. Kaiser was here for months without a single issue. Tessa countered, desperation edging her voice. He's fully trained, certified. The program only ended because of budget cuts. Dr. Keene interrupted firmly. We cannot grant exceptions, especially with Beatrix Langley's visit coming up. That donor's contribution would fund crucial improvements for this ward. Fury surged through Tessa's chest, fierce and blinding. My son is fighting for his life and you're worried about a fundraiser. I understand your frustration, Dr. Keene replied coolly, professional distance clear in her voice. But we have policies to protect every patient here. I'm sorry, the answer has to be no. As Dr. Keene's heels clicked away down the hallway, Tessa turned back to her sleeping son. His little face was calm, unaware of the storm raging just beyond his crib. She pictured Kaiser's gentle presence, how he'd rest his head close, those wise amber eyes, full of quiet understanding, and how Ayan would reach for him, making those soft, rare cooing sounds that had drifted away lately. The weight of spiraling medical bills pressed down on her debts she could never cover, working in the diner even with all the extra shifts. But right now, watching her son struggle to breathe money was meaningless. Time was the real treasure, and she felt her supply slipping fast. Linda came back with Ian's evening medications. I heard about Dr. Keene's decision, she said softly. I'm so sorry, Tessa. That dog had a magic touch with the kids. Tessa brushed tears away with the back of her hand. All I want is for him to feel even a bit of joy, some kind of comfort. Is that too much to hope for? No, sweetheart, it's not. Linda examined Ian's monitors with practiced skill. You know, I still have the contact info for Kaiser's handler. Owen was crushed when the program ended. A glimmer of hope sparked in Tessa's chest, small but fierce. She glanced up at Linda, catching the weary understanding in the nurse's eyes. I can't officially share that information, Linda whispered softly. But if by chance my personal phone happens to be unlocked on the break room table while I'm checking on other patients. She shot Tessa a meaningful glance. Tears welled up, but these were different, released after holding on all day. Thank you, she breathed. I'm heading on break now, Linda said at normal volume. I'll be back in 15 minutes to check on Ian. As Linda's footsteps faded, Tessa gazed at her son. His little chest rose and fell, each breath a quiet victory. She thought of Dr. Keene's cold dismissal, the importance placed on a donor event over a dying child's comfort. Months of exhaustion, grief, and anger crystallized inside her into something stronger, steadfast and fierce. I promise you, baby, she whispered to Ayan. You're going to see Kaiser again. Mama is going to make it happen. Rising slowly, her joints stiff after hours of sitting, she headed down the hall to the break room, knowing she had exactly 15 minutes. 15 minutes to find the one piece of information that could bring her son a final spark of happiness. 15 minutes to decide if she was willing to challenge the rules designed to steal even this small comfort away. Tessa took one last look at Ayan, his fragile frame dwarfed by medical machines. The choice was clear to her. She would break any rule, face whatever came. She squared her shoulders and moved with quiet purpose toward the break room, footsteps soft but unwavering. In her mind, she already saw Kaiser's gentle eyes and felt his steady warmth. She would bring that solace back to Ian, even if it meant standing against the whole hospital administration. Some fights are worth everything, no matter the price. And this was one of those battles. The break room door sat slightly ajar, and through the crack, she spotted Linda's phone glowing softly on the table. Tessa inhaled deeply and nudged the door open, stepping into the quiet room where her quiet rebellion would start. The weight of her choice pressed on her chest, balanced by a fierce hope, the kind born only when you have nothing left to lose but everything worth fighting for. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the hospital courtyard as Tessa paced beside the stone fountain. Her fingers nervously twisted the small scrap of paper holding Owen Rohr's number, now blurred from her anxious fumbling. After a brief call, he had agreed to meet her here, away from the hospital's prying eyes. A soft breeze stirred the maple leaves in the courtyard, carrying the faint antiseptic scent that clung to everything inside the hospital's walls. Tessa checked her watch once again. Carrying that faint antiseptic scent that seemed to seep into every corner of the hospital, Tessa glanced at her watch once more. She had asked one of the younger nurses to keep Ayan company for half an hour, promising to return with coffee as a small token. Miss Whitaker came a deep, steady voice. Tessa turned to see a tall man approaching his salt and pepper beard, neatly trimmed and groomed, clad in a navy blue jacket emblazoned with the emblem of a therapy dog organization. His eyes held a quiet kindness, seasoned by both sorrow and hope. "Please call me Tessa," she offered, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Rohr. Owen—" He interrupted gently with a soft smile. "Kaiser's in the car. I thought it best we talk first." They settled onto a bench nearby, the gentle murmur of the fountain masking their whispered words. Tessa's hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone and showed him a photo of Ayan. This was taken 3 months ago, the last time Kaiser visited through the therapy program. She explained, her voice thick with emotion. "Look at his face. I hadn't seen him smile like that in weeks." Owen examined the picture closely, his expression softening at the image of the little boy reaching toward the German shepherd's calm, gentle gaze. "Kaiser remembers him," Owen said. "He always got excited heading to the pediatric ward, but some kids he bonded with in a special way. Ian was one of them." Tessa inhaled deeply, steeling herself. "They've stopped treatment," she whispered. "They said it might be just days, or maybe a week." The words scraped like shattered glass in her throat. "I just want Kaiser to see him one last time, one moment of pure joy before." Her voice faltered. Owen's hands clenched tightly, knuckles turning white. "I heard the therapy dog program was suspended for donor event prep," he said quietly. "It feels wrong to prioritize fundraising over patient care. Dr. Keene won't make any exceptions," Tessa added softly. "Not even for end-of-life comfort." "I've tried everything, Owen. I'm not asking for much. Just one visit, one chance for my baby to feel that happiness again." Suddenly another voice broke into their conversation. "Maybe I can help with that." They both turned to see a young nurse dressed in light blue scrubs standing nearby, her curly hair loose around her face. Her badge read, Hollis Vega RN. "Sorry to interrupt," Hollis said, stepping closer. "I overheard you. I've been the one caring for Ayan since he arrived. What they're doing, it's just not right." Owen rose, his posture straightening with newfound resolve. "You're risking your job stepping into this," he warned. Hollis lifted her chin, unwavering. "Some things are worth the risk. I'm on the night shift tomorrow. The donor event prep team will have left by then, and Dr. Keene never stays past 6 p.m. She glanced around cautiously before lowering her voice. "The service entrance near the loading dock is usually clear after 8 o'clock. Security does hourly rounds." Tessa felt a surge of hope fill her chest. Dangerous, thrilling hope. "You'd really help us. I can rearrange the round schedule to clear your path," Hollis said firmly. "Just be careful. If anyone spots us, they won't look kindly," Owen cautioned. Kaiser's trained for stealthy come-and-go, Hollis reassured them. "He was a rescue before he became a therapy dog. He knows how to move without a sound." Kaiser had been trained for stealthy entry and exit. Before becoming a therapy dog, he was a rescue dog. He knew how to move without making a sound. He glanced at Tessa. "Tomorrow night at 8:30. That gives us just enough time to slip in between the security patrols." Tessa nodded, her eyes shimmering as tears threatened to spill. "I don't even know how to begin thanking you both," Hollis warned. "Don't thank us yet. We've got to map this out perfectly." She pulled out a small notebook, sketching a quick, precise map. "This is the service entrance. I'll hold it open right at 8:30. Take the service elevator up to the 4th floor, then turn left down the back hallway. I'll meet you by the supply closet and lead you straight to Ayan's room." Owen studied the map, carefully committing the path to memory. "Kaiser and I will be ready. We'll park in the farthest lot away from any cameras. I'll make sure Ayan is awake." Tessa added, her voice stronger with hope. "He's usually more alert in the evenings." Hollis checked her watch. "I need to head back now. I'll rearrange tomorrow's schedule during my shift tonight." She reached out gently, touching Tessa's arm. "We're going to make this happen." As Hollis hurried back inside, Owen turned to Tessa. "You sure about this?" What if we get caught? I'm sure Tessa said with steely resolve. My son deserves this moment of happiness. Whatever comes next, I'll take responsibility. Owen's eyes softened with understanding. No, it's ours to bear together now. We're in this side by side. He rose and offered her his card with his personal number. Text me when you're ready tomorrow. Kaiser and I will be waiting. Tessa watched him walk away, clutching the card like a lifeline. For the first time in weeks, she felt an ember flicker beyond the despair. A spark of defiance, of hope of a fierce love that could move mountains, or at least sneak a therapy dog past hospital red tape. She hurried over to the coffee cart, remembering the promise she'd made the nurse sitting with Ayan. Waiting in line, she offered a quiet prayer of gratitude for Owen and Hollis, willing to risk everything for a dying boy. Tomorrow night couldn't arrive soon enough. Back in Ayan's room, she sank into her usual chair, her gaze fixed on his tiny chest, rising and falling. Kaiser's coming to see you tomorrow, baby, she whispered, brushing her fingers over his small hand. Just hold on a little longer. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm, as outside the window the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with strokes of hope and promise. In fewer than 24 hours, they'd launch their silent rebellion against a system that had forgotten sometimes love calls for bending the rules. Tessa felt stronger than she had in weeks. Tomorrow night she wouldn't face this fight alone. Tomorrow night they'd give her son a moment of joy, no matter the cost. She gently squeezed Ayan's hand, his peaceful face unaware of the risks and plans being woven, all for a final chance to see him smile. The service entrance door creaked softly as Tessa held it open, her heart hammering in her chest. Owen led Kaiser through the German shepherd's nails, tapping lightly on the linoleum floor. In the fading evening light, Kaiser's sable coat seemed to drink in the shadows, rendering him nearly invisible. Remember, Tessa whispered, we have to be absolutely silent. Her hands trembled as she glanced at her phone. 8:32 p.m. right on the dot. Owen nodded, drawing Kaiser closer to his side. The dog moved with quiet precision, each step a testament to his relentless training. They reached the service elevator without a hitch, the faint creak of its aging machinery the only sound in the empty hallway. 4th floor, Tessa mouthed silently as she pressed the button. The elevator groaned awake, lifting them upward. Each floor ticked by with heart-wrenching slowness, the digital display climbing 1, 2, 3. When the doors parted on the 4th floor, Hollis waited by the supply closet, just as promised. Urgently, she beckoned them forward with a desperate wave. Hurry, she whispered. Security just wrapped their rounds. We have about 50 minutes. They trailed her through the labyrinth of corridors, beyond darkened offices and silent treatment rooms. The neonatal intensive care unit stood at the hallway's end, its entrance guarded by double doors and stern warnings about sterile protocols. Hollis swiped her badge. They slipped inside without hesitation. The NICU was softly lit, bathed in shadows that clung gently to the edges, punctuated only by the warm glow of monitors and medical devices. The steady beep of machines formed a haunting rhythm beneath their quiet footsteps. Ayan's room was the third on the left. Tessa's breath hitched as they stepped inside. Her baby looked fragile in that hospital crib surrounded by wires and tubes. His tiny chest rose and fell with mechanical rhythm, aided by oxygen flowing gently through his nasal cannula. Hey, sweet boy, Tessa whispered, leaning close to the crib. Look who's come to see you. Owen eased Kaiser forward, but something shifted in the dog's calm demeanor. Instead of his usual steady, comforting presence, Kaiser's ears shot forward. His nose twitched sharply, and a low, uneasy whine slipped from his throat. What's wrong? Tessa whispered, her voice trembling with rising fear. Owen scowled, his gaze fixed on Kaiser, who began pacing restlessly near Ayan's crib, the dog's agitation mounting by the second. Kaiser pawed at the IV line connected to Ayan's arm, then locked his fierce stare onto the wall where medical supplies were stored. I've never seen him act like this during a therapy visit, Owen said, his tone tight with worry. Kaiser shifted toward the formula cart by the wall, whining more urgently now. His nose worked frantically, sniffing along the cart's surfaces and the hanging bags of nutrition. Tessa's heart clenched painfully. Is he sensing that something's wrong with Aeon? She couldn't breathe life into the thought. Tears welling. Owen shook his head, a dark seriousness settling over his face with every passing second. No, this isn't just grief. It's something else entirely. This is how he acts when he's detecting. Detecting Hollis stepped closer, her eyes narrowing on whatever had drawn Kaiser's attention. Before Owen could answer, the door slammed open. Dr. Mallory Keene stood there, her face twisted with fury. Even in the dim glow, her perfectly tailored suit and immaculate hair radiated command and control. The door to the room slammed open. Dr. Mallory Keene stood there, her face twisted with anger. Even in the low light, her impeccably tailored suit and perfectly styled hair radiated power and control. "What is this?" she muttered sharply, her voice low and cutting like a knife. "A dog inside my immaculate ward." Tessa stepped forward, positioning herself firmly between Dr. Keene and Kaiser. "He's a certified therapy dog. He's here to offer comfort to my son." Comfort. Dr. Keene's laugh was cold and brittle. "Your son needs medical treatment, not some emotional support animal polluting this sterile environment. This is utterly unacceptable." Kaiser's whining grew louder, more urgent. He returned to the formula cart, pawing anxiously at its base. "Remove that animal at once," Dr. Keene commanded, reaching for her phone. "I'm calling security." "No?" Tessa's voice was soft but resolute. She straightened, gathering strength from some deep well within. "My son is fighting for his life, Dr. Keene. The least you can do is let him have this small comfort." "This isn't about comfort," Dr. Keene snapped. "This is about strict protocols and keeping sterile conditions intact. Do you even realize what our donors would say if they saw animals wandering through the NICU? Is that all you care about?" Tessa's voice trembled with emotion. "Your donors. What about the children you're supposed to be protecting?" Kaiser's movements grew frantic. He circled back to Aeon's IV line, then to the formula cart whines, taking on a desperate tone that sparked Owen's professional instincts. Ma'am Owen tried to speak. "I think there's something here." "I don't care what you think." Dr. Keene cut him off coldly. "Remove this dog from my ward right now, or I'll have security escort you all off and press charges for trespassing." Hollis stepped forward. "Dr. Keene, please, maybe we should, and you—" Dr. Keene's icy glare locked on the nurse. "Consider yourself suspended pending an investigation into your role in this breach." But Tessa's patience snapped. Months of fear, sleepless nights, and mounting anguish crystallized into a fierce blaze of maternal courage. "No!" she declared, louder voice unwavering. "Kaiser stays. My son's comfort is far more important than your fragile illusion of control." "How dare you?" Dr. Keene started, but Kaiser's sharp bark cut through her fury. The German shepherd stood alert, now eyes locked on the formula cart, his posture shouting warning to anyone who could see, and Owen saw it. He'd witnessed this exact behavior countless times during rescue missions. "Something's wrong," he said steadily, voice heavy with hard-earned certainty. "Kaiser's not grieving. He's signaling danger. This is how he acts when he senses a threat." The room grew silent except for steady monitor beeping and Kaiser's persistent whines. For a moment they all stood frozen, caught in an intense stillness of conflict. Tessa stood fierce beside her son's crib, Owen sharp and focused on Kaiser, Hollis watching with rising worry, and Dr. Keene burning with barely concealed rage. The administrator's phone was midway to her ear when Kaiser barked once more, the sound ricocheting against sterile walls. The warning was unmistakable. Something serious was wrong here. Something far beyond protocol violations or donor concerns. And in that moment, as Kaiser's caution echoed through the room, the true gravity of their nighttime defiance began to reveal itself. This was no longer merely about easing the pain of a dying child. Something darker was lurking beneath the sterile calm of this hospital wing, and Kaiser's keen instincts had sensed what human eyes had overlooked. The steady beeping of Ayan's monitors continued unperturbed, as the baby lay sleeping in his crib, unaware of the tension building above him, where a mother's fierce love, a dog's warning, and the hidden secrets of the hospital converged in the faint glow of a NICU room that felt like a battleground instead of a sanctuary for healing. Morning light streamed softly through the NICU windows, stretching long shadows across the gleaming floor. Tessa sat hunched in her usual chair next to Ian's crib, her eyes heavy with the exhaustion of another sleepless night. Kaiser's warning still lingered in her mind, though fatigue momentarily muted the sharp edge of her fear. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by the crisp click of designer heels on linoleum. Dr. Mallory Keene strode confidently through the double doors, followed by a statuesque woman dressed in elegant designer attire. Trailing behind them was a swarm of photographers and reporters, their camera bags rustling with anticipation. "Welcome to our cutting-edge neonatal intensive care unit," Dr. Keene announced, her tone polished and warm, as if delivering a well-rehearsed tour. "Thanks to the generous backing of the Langley Foundation, we've been able to offer the most advanced care to our tiniest, most vulnerable patients." The elegant woman, undoubtedly Beatrice Langley herself, smiled gracefully for the cameras. Her jewels caught the morning sunlight, scattering twinkles across the walls. "It's truly inspiring to witness the impact our foundation continues to make," she said, her voice laced with practiced sincerity. Tessa observed as orderlies and nurses scurried about, straightening blankets and fine-tuning machines. Much like stagehands preparing for a grand performance, every detail was meticulously polished for the camera's gaze. Dr. Keene's eyes locked on Tessa with a tightening smile. Breaking away from her group, she approached with determined, swift steps. "Mrs. Whitaker," she said, her voice dropping to a serious whisper, "I need you to leave the ward immediately." Tessa's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? No, I'm not leaving. This is my son!" "This is not a request," Dr. Keene stated, her voice steely beneath its polished surface. "After the disturbance last night involving the dog, you've been deemed a disruption to hospital protocol. We cannot risk any unpleasant incidents during this critical event." "Unpleasant incidents?" Tessa's voice cracked with mounting disbelief. "My son is fighting for his life, and you're worried about appearances for your cameras." "Lower your voice, doctor," Keene hissed. "If you continue to be uncooperative, I will have no choice but to initiate discharge procedures. Your son's condition has stabilized, and we need the bed for patients with more urgent needs." The threat hit Tessa like a punch to the gut. "You can't do that. He's far too fragile to be moved." "I can and I will," Dr. Keene replied, her smile frozen in place. "Now please vacate the ward for the next hour. We'll talk about your son's condition a little later." Before Tessa could reply, Hollis appeared quietly at her side. The young nurse wore a measured, neutral expression, but there was a flicker of urgency in her eyes. "I'll stay with Ayan," Hollis assured her softly. "Why don't you grab some coffee? I need to go over his care plan with you anyway." Something about Hollis's tone made Tessa hesitate. She nodded slowly, gathering her worn-out purse and jacket. As she passed through the cluster of reporters, she caught the refined voice of Beatrice Langley echoing in the hallway. "Our foundation's specialized formula program has ushered in a new era for infant nutrition. Partnering with this hospital embodies everything we value: excellence, innovation, and above all, compassion for those who need it most." Each word trailed behind Tessa like a sharp sting. She entered the small family waiting room, now stripped of its usual visitors. Likely cleared out for the photo shoot, she thought grimly. Moments later, roughly 15 minutes passed before Hollis quietly stepped inside, closing the door with care. The nurse's typical warm smile was gone, replaced by a solemn seriousness. "I've been going over Ayan's medical charts," Hollis said plainly, her voice low and steady. "Something doesn't sit right." Tessa leaned forward, eyes sharp. "What do you mean?" "His deterioration, it's quick, yes, but also follows a very particular pattern." Hollis pulled a small notebook from her pocket, flipping through pages filled with hurried notes. "I began tracking it when I realized the timing was too precise. Everything shifted around 6 weeks ago." "What happened 6 weeks ago?" Tessa asked, heart tightening. "That's when they switched him to the new formula program, the one backed by the Langley Foundation." Hollis's eyes flicked nervously toward the door. It's supposed to be specially crafted for premature infants with complex nutritional needs. The hospital gets it at a huge discount, but in return they have exclusive rights to use it and promote it. Tessa's pulse quickened. And you think the two are connected? I can't say for sure, Hollis admitted, but I've been a NICU nurse for 5 years, and I've never witnessed a pattern like this before. The timing is too coincidental, especially since other babies on the same formula are showing similar symptoms, less drastic, but still concerning. Why hasn't anyone spoken up? Tessa demanded. Hollis let out a bitter laugh. The Langley Foundation practically owns this ward now. Their donations paid for the latest equipment, funded research, even some of our salaries. Doctor, Keene would never jeopardize that alliance, no matter what the evidence showed. Tessa's mind flashed back to Kaiser's behavior from last night. His restless agitation around the formula cart, his frantic attempts to warn them. Last night, she began slowly. Kaiser was trying to tell us something about the formula. Dogs pick up on things we can't. Hollis agreed. And Kaiser isn't just any dog, he's trained to detect danger. Through the waiting room window, they watched the photo shoot unfold in the ward. Beatrice Langley stood poised beside a baby's crib, her perfectly manicured hands gently resting on the rail as cameras snapped away. Nearby, Dr. Keene directed the scene like a film director, orchestrating every move and gesture. What can we do? Tessa asked, her voice thick with raw emotion. They're not listening to us. They've made that clear enough. We need solid proof, Hollis stated firmly. Genuine scientific evidence that can't be ignored or swept under the rug. I've already started gathering all the documentation, but we need more. And she hesitated. We have to tread carefully. Doctor, Keene won't think twice before crushing anyone who stands in the way of this setup. Tessa watched as more photos were snapped, more hands were shaken, more forced smiles exchanged. Meanwhile, her son lay fragile in his crib, fading away day by day while people posed for pictures and spoke of excellence and innovation. I'm done worrying about being careful, she whispered. I just want to save my son. Hollis gripped her hand tightly. We'll find a way. But for now we have to play along. Let them have their spotlight. Let them believe they're in control. Morning sunlight poured through the windows, lighting up dust particles that floated like tiny stars in the air. Down in the NICU, cameras flashed and smiles were on display. While in a quiet waiting room, two women began plotting how to reveal a truth that powerful people desperately wanted to keep buried. Amin's monitors beeped steadily in the background, ticking like a relentless metronome. His life balanced precariously, caught between corporate greed and medical responsibility, between a mother's fierce love and an administrator's ambition. The truth waited to be uncovered in charts and data, in patterns and connections, in a therapy dog's restless warning and a nurse's watchful eyes. The photo op pressed on, a meticulously staged show of generosity and progress. But beneath the surface, something darker festered. Something concealed behind smiles and donations. Something slowly poisoning the very children it claimed to protect. Owen Rohr couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that haunted him through sleepless nights. Kaiser's behavior in the NICU hadn't been normal. Not for a therapy dog, and certainly not for Kaiser. 2 decades of working with K9 units had taught him to trust a dog's instincts, especially when it came to sensing danger. He moved quietly through the hospital halls that early morning, Kaiser padding silently right beside him. The German Shepherd's ears were perked alert and completely focused. They had arrived before the day shift change when the halls were still. "Hey," a gentle voice called out. Hollis stepped out from around the corner, still wearing her night shift scrubs. Dark circles beneath her eyes showed she hadn't slept much either. "I was hoping you'd come back." Owen nodded. Kaiser's reaction last night? It wasn't just anxiety or empathy. He was trying to warn us. "I know," Hollis said, glancing back over her shoulder. "Dr. Keene is tied up with the donor event over in the East Wing. We probably have about 15 minutes before she comes around here." That was all Owen needed to hear. They slipped quietly into the NICU, where Tessa sat beside An's crib, gently caressing his tiny hand. The baby's breathing seemed more strained than the night before. his chest rising and falling erratically. "We need to take a closer look," Owen told Tessa. He unclipped Kaiser's therapy dog vest and slipped on his old search and rescue harness instead. The German Shepherd's whole demeanor shifted instantly. This wasn't a visit for comfort anymore, it was time for serious work. "Swo," Owen commanded in a hushed tone. Kaiser's nose sprang into action without hesitation, moving deliberately, scanning every inch of the room. But when he reached the formula cart, Kaiser's behavior shifted abruptly. His muscles tensed, and he started pawing fiercely at the floor. The same alert Owen had seen countless times during their rescue missions. "That's a solid reaction," Owen murmured, eyes fixed on Kaiser intently. "He's picking up something very specific." Hollis stepped closer, her face drained of color. These formulas were supposed to be sterile, carefully crafted for fragile, premature babies whose immune systems were already compromised. Suddenly, Kaiser turned his focus toward the wall by Ian's crib, the exact same spot he'd been obsessed with the night before. His whining intensified, and he scratched at the baseboards with growing urgency. Two distinct alerts, Owen realized, his worry mounting one at the formula cart, another at that wall. In search and rescue, that pattern almost always meant multiple sources of contamination or threat. Tessa's grip tightened on the crib rail. The formula, Hollis whispered, connecting it to Ian's rapid decline. "But what's going on with the wall?" Before Owen could answer, a sharp voice sliced through the tense atmosphere. "What on earth is that dog doing here again?" Dr. Mallory Keene stood in the doorway, her perfectly tailored suit, a stark contrast to their worn-out appearances. "I thought I made myself clear last night." Owen stepped forward steadfast. "Dr. Keene, I'm a certified K9 handler with over 15 years of experience in hazard detection. Kaiser is picking up something serious." "This is a medical facility, not a construction zone," Keene interrupted sharply. "Your dog's alerts are disturbing our patients and staff. I want you out of this ward right now." "Ma'am, with all due respect," Owen said firmly. "No," Keene's voice cut like a scalpel. "I won't let some retired firefighter and his dog tarnish this hospital's reputation. We rely on state-of-the-art equipment, strict protocols." Her tirade was suddenly broken by a loud beeping. Hollis dashed over to Ian's monitors, swift and precise. "His oxygen levels are dropping again," she announced, adjusting settings quickly. "Heart rate is elevated, blood pressure unstable. This is exactly why we can't afford disruptions," Keene snapped. "Security will remove you if necessary." But Owen and Kaiser stood their ground, unflinching. "Doctor, I've seen responses like this in collapsed buildings, disaster zones. When Kaiser reacts this way, it signals immediate danger. Multiple contamination sources threatening enough lives." Keene's facade faltered for a moment. "You have no authority here. This is a prestigious medical center with millions in funding and the latest protocols. We don't need amateur opinions while his stats keep falling." Hollis cut in, sharply urgency in her voice. "We need to do our job." Nurse Vega snapped back sharply. "And you," she pointed at Owen, "remove that dog from my ward before I call security." Kaiser's whining grew more urgent, his gaze darting between the formula cart and the wall, his distress impossible to ignore. Owen recognized the gravity in his companion's restless behavior. This wasn't mere worry, it was pure desperation. "Look at him," Owen urged, nodding toward Kaiser. "He's trained to sniff out biological and chemical dangers. Something in that formula, something behind that wall is setting off his most intense warnings. You have to pay attention to this." "I don't and I won't." Keene's voice was cold as ice. "This ward follows my orders, not the instincts of a retired firefighter and his dog. Our protocols are vetted by top medical experts and generous donors who care more about photo ops than patient safety." Tessa's quiet voice cut sharply through the tension. She stood by Ayan's crib, her hand still gently resting on her son's arm, her eyes burning with fierce motherly determination. "My baby is dying while you worry more about donors and hospital image." Kaiser's whining reached a piercing new level as he turned back to the wall, clawing more desperately at the baseboards, the sound ringing out in the sudden hush. "Get out!" Keene articulated each word with harsh precision. "Or I'll have security escort you out, ensuring you never return to this hospital." Owen glanced at Tessa. then at Hollis, who was still frantically monitoring Ian's vitals. Conflict was etched across the nurse's face, torn between following strict orders and acknowledging something deeply wrong. "His vitals are failing to stabilize," Hollis said. Her calm professionalism cracked with worry. "We need to rethink what we need," Keene cut her off, "is order and strict adherence to protocol, not panic over a dog's behavior." But Kaiser would not relent. His warnings grew stronger, more urgent. Owen knew this. It was the same in every disaster he'd faced. This was no false alarm, no confusion or nervousness. This was a seasoned detection dog, risking everything to warn them of real and immediate danger. The tension was thick, a fierce clash between authority and truth, between cold protocol and raw instinct, between power and desperation. Amid it all, monitors kept beeping warnings, while a tiny baby fought for life, and a German shepherd tried desperately to make them understand. Morning sunlight stretched long shadows across the NICU windows, underscoring the stark divide between those chasing truth and those who feared it. Kaiser's alert rang out, still a desperate chorus no force could silence. Something was deeply wrong in this ward, putting the most fragile lives at risk, and no amount of administrative pressure could erase that reality. Hollis Vega's hands trembled slightly as she slipped into the hospital lab after her shift. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows over empty stations. She carefully withdrew Aeon's freshest blood samples from her scrub pocket, labeled meticulously, but completely unauthorized. Breaking protocol churned her stomach with unease, but she couldn't ignore the truth any longer. But the haunting memories of Kaiser's frantic warnings and Aeon's worsening condition drove her onward. Running just a few basic tests, she murmured softly to steady her pounding heart. The centrifuge whirred to life, spinning the tiny blood samples while she organized the testing supplies. Years of lab expertise steered her hands, methodical and precise, even as anxiety gnawed at her. Down the corridor in the hospital's records room, Owen Rohr sat buried among heaps of K9 certification files. His past as a handler earned him access, though the clerk's wary glance warned he was stretching his welcome. "Come on, Kaiser," he muttered, flipping through yet another folder. "Show me what you're hiding, boy." The German shepherd lay quietly at his feet, occasionally lifting his head whenever Owen called his name. Their earlier tense encounter with Dr. Keene had left them both unsettled, but Owen sensed there was more beneath Kaiser's anxious behavior than fear alone. At last, his eyes locked on a thick file, Kaiser's dual certification advanced detection. His pulse quickened as he scanned the papers. Not merely therapy work, but intense training in biological hazard detection and fire risk, a rare skill set shared by only 12 dogs statewide. "That's why you were so restless," Owen whispered gently, scratching Kaiser's ears. "You weren't just feeling Aeon's distress. You were alerting us to real threats." Back in the lab, Hollis stared intently at her computer, double-checking the readouts. "This can't be right," she murmured, fingers nervously threading through her curls. The metabolic markers in Aeon's blood painted a picture completely at odds with his preliminary diagnosis. Something was wreaking havoc on his system, but it wasn't what they thought they were fighting. The lab door creaked open, suddenly jolting her. Dr. Keene stepped inside, immaculate in her tailored suit despite the late hour. "Nurse Vega," she said icily, "running unauthorized tests after hours? I'm disappointed." Hollis straightened, summoning her resolve. "Dr. Keene, these results reveal severe metabolic abnormalities. Ayan's body is reacting to something undetected. If we adjust his therapy accordingly." King cut her off, closing the distance between them. Unauthorized testing, challenging approved protocols, entertaining the wild theories of a dog handler. She shook her head with finality. "This ends now." But the truth was, the evidence might be compromised, mishandled, unchecked outside protocol. Keene's voice was silk smooth, but her eyes were steel. "Delete those results. Nurse Vega, for your own sake." Hollis felt her fists clench tight. "Are you threatening me? I'm protecting this hospital. And your career." Keene's smile tightened sharply. Their potential extinguished. The unspoken threat hung heavy in the charged silence between them. Hollis stared at her computer screen, then glanced back at Keene. Years of relentless effort, student loans hanging over her, and her family's pride, all balanced against a sick infant and a dog's frantic warnings. In the records room, Owen was carefully piecing together Kaiser's background. He uncovered multiple commendations for his detection work, including a situation where Kaiser had identified toxic mold hidden behind hospital walls before it could harm patients. His keen nose had saved lives before. "Sir?" The clerk appeared at the doorway. "We're closing soon." Owen gave a quick nod, capturing photos of the relevant pages on his phone. He needed to find Hollis, share what he had discovered. Kaiser's credentials weren't just remarkable. They could be the difference between life and death. Meanwhile, tension thickened in the lab between the two women. "Think carefully about your next steps," Keene warned. "One nurse's misplaced worry isn't worth tearing us apart. Everything we've built here, everything you've based on what Hollis shot back. Ignoring warnings, sweeping problems under the rug. How many other patients might be suffering unexpected reactions from that new formula?" Keene's expression hardened. "You're overwrought, Nurse Vega. Take tomorrow off. Clear your head." Before Hollis could answer, her phone buzzed. A message from Owen popped up. "Found something critical. Kaiser's certifications confirm he can detect contamination and fire hazards. His alerts aren't emotional outbursts. They are trained responses to real threats. Meet me in the cafeteria." A spark of hope stirred inside Hollis. She looked up at Keene, who watched her with sharp eyes. "You're right," she said cautiously. "I need to clear my head and think this through." "That's wise," Keene replied, though her smile never reached her eyes. "I'll have maintenance handle proper disposal of those samples." Hollis gathered her things, careful to keep her phone hidden from Keene's view, as she typed a quick reply. "On my way, bringing evidence of metabolic irregularities." Kaiser was right. She left the lab feeling Keene's piercing stare on her back. In her pocket, a USB drive held copies of Ayan's test results. Sometimes standing up for patients meant breaking rules, especially when those rules shielded the wrong people. The hospital's night shift was kicking off. Hallways began filling with fresh scrubs and weary faces. Hollis clutched her evidence close, thinking of Ayan's labored breathing, Kaiser's urgent alarms, and the decay hidden behind the hospital's spotless walls. They had the proof now, real scientific evidence that something was seriously wrong. In the cafeteria, Owen waited with Kaiser papers spread across the corner of a table. His face brightened when Hollis arrived. "You won't believe what I uncovered," he began. "Try me," she challenged, pulling out the USB drive, "because what I've found might be even bigger." Together they leaned over their evidence while Kaiser sat watchful at their side. The dog's earlier warnings hadn't been just about comfort or loyalty. They were exactly what he was trained to do, detect true physical threats that endangered the most vulnerable. Now they just had to find a way to make someone listen before it was too late. The harsh glare of television cameras flooded the pediatric ward as Beatrice Langley stepped confidently through the entrance. A practiced smile lingered on her flawlessly made-up face. Her silk blazer shimmered under the lights, perfectly echoing the blue and silver emblem of her foundation, emblazoned on the wall behind her. "Here stands our latest collaboration," she declared to the following reporters, sweeping her arm wide. "The Langley Foundation is elevating infant nutrition to new heights through our groundbreaking specialized formula program." Dr. Keene hovered beside her pride, carefully sculpted across her features. "We are truly honored to lead this trailblazing effort," she added, steering the group past the nurses' station. In Ayan's room, Tessa sat rigidly in her chair, one hand tenderly pressed against her son's tiny chest. The clamor from the hallway twisted her stomach into knots. Through the window, she spotted Owen and Kaiser waiting tensely in the adjacent room, tucked away from the main corridor, but poised to spring into action. Kaiser's ears twitched sharply. His posture-stiffened nose turned unwaveringly toward the wall, bearing a large electrical panel. A low, menacing growl rumbled deep in his chest. Owen noticed the shift instantly. This warning was unlike the contamination alert from before. It was sharper, more immediate. He watched as Kaiser's hackles rose, the dog's amber eyes locked with intense focus on the panel. Overhead lights flickered once, then twice. A subtle buzzing buzz emerged beneath the hum of the media tour. As you can see our state-of-the-art facility, Dr. Keen's voice cut through the hall, but was interrupted again as the lights flickered. This time they dimmed noticeably before snapping back to full brightness. Kaiser's growl deepened ominously. He stepped toward the panel, then glanced back at Owen with unmistakable distress in his eyes. A sharp, acrid scent began to drift through the air, the unmistakable sting of electrical smoke. Owen's firefighting instincts kicked in immediately. His eyes scanned the room, noting a maintenance cart abandoned by a worker who had fled when the media arrived. "Ma'am?" Owen called out, hurrying towards Dr. Keen. "We have to—" "Not now," she snapped through her poised smile without turning her head. "We're in the middle of something crucial." The scent of smoke thickened. Kaiser barked sharply, an urgent, piercing cry that startled several reporters. "Why is that dog even here?" Beatrice Langley demanded, her voice polished but edged with annoyance. "This can't be proper protocol." Dr. Keen's expression tensed. "Security will escort him out immediately. Please let me explain our success statistics." Owen was already moving toward the abandoned cart, pulling out a small diagnostic kit. His hands moved swiftly, assembling an infrared thermometer. Behind him, Kaiser's barking grew more insistent. Tessa rose from Aeon's bedside, her heart pounding fiercely. The smell was unmistakable now, and the lights continued their erratic flicker. Her instincts screamed at her to grab her son and flee, but Aeon was hooked to so many machines, moving him without proper support could be perilous. "Everyone needs to clear this area," Owen commanded firmly, aiming the thermometer at the electrical panel. The reading stole his breath away. The temperature soared dangerously high, teetering on the edge of sparking electrical fires. "Mr. Rohr!" Dr. Keen snapped sharply. "You're interrupting a critical event. Remove yourself and that animal this instant, or I'll have security escort you out." The lights flickered once more, this time longer, and a sharp crackling erupted from within the wall. Kaiser's barking ramped up to a frantic howl. "The panel's about to blow," Owen announced, his voice slicing through the chaos. "We have to get out of here right now." Beatrice Langley's cameraman lowered his equipment, visibly tense. "Are we supposed to be worried about this? Everything's under control," Dr. Keen insisted, though her voice trembled as the smell of burning grew stronger. "This is just a minor issue," she said. But then Aeon's faint, desperate cry pierced through the mounting tension. The monitors sprang to life with erratic, beeping power surges scrambling their readings. Tessa's eyes darted between her son and the smoking panel, caught in a paralyzing dilemma. The machines kept him alive for now, but if the fire ignited— Owen stepped forward, his tone calm, yet resolute. "Nurse Vega, bring a transport unit immediately. Dr. Keen, initiate code red and start evacuation. Miss Langley, get your crew to the emergency exit." Kaiser planted himself between the crib and the hazardous panel, standing tall and unwavering, fiercely protective. The dog's warning had been crystal clear from the start. The danger he sensed was undeniable now. "This is completely unnecessary," Dr. Keen argued. But even she flinched when another sharp crack echoed, followed by sparks bursting from the panel edges. The reporters wasted no time waiting for permission to retreat. Cameras continued rolling as they edged back, the reality sinking in. Beatrice Langley's flawless smile dissolved into raw fear. My baby Tessa whispered, trembling hands hovering protectively over Aeon's fragile form. "Please someone help me get him out safely." Hollis burst through the doors with a transport unit, barking out clear instructions to the nurses. "We need to move him carefully. Everyone else clear the area immediately." The overhead lights pulsed violently one last time before plunging the ward into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in a dim, urgent red hue. The acrid sting of burning electric wires thickened the air, smoke curling from behind the failing panel. Kaiser's early warning had been spot on, deadly real. Emergency crews scrambled, executing evacuation protocols and ushering patients out as the truth of the dog's insight fully sunk in. No one doubted Kaiser's instincts anymore. or the urgent truth in his alarms. The race was on to get everyone out before the danger escalated beyond control. Fire alarms shrieked throughout the corridors, heightening the turmoil. Dr. Keene stood frozen in disbelief as the carefully planned media moment shattered into disaster. Cameras rolled relentlessly, capturing her faltering composure, contrasted by the swift, decisive actions of the team. "Please help me with him," Tessa begged, desperation echoing in her voice. Owen stepped forward to assist, as Hollis carefully began detaching Ian from the fixed machines, shifting him onto portable life support units. The fragile infant's tiny face was scrunched tight with distress, his breath shallow and struggling in the smoky, acrid air. Kaiser held his ground, unwavering, alternating sharp warning growls at the electrical panel with soft, comforting whines for Aeon. The dog's body was taut with readiness, poised to leap into action if the threat escalated, yet steadfast. He stayed until the baby was securely relocated. The evacuation had begun. But the looming danger was far from over. Sparks relentlessly flew from the faltering electrical system, and Kaiser's alert was the only thing keeping them ahead of disaster. Without his warnings, the peril might have gone unheeded too long. Thick ribbons of smoke snaked through the ward like silent phantoms, their eerie fingers curling in the air. The sharp, bitter stench of burning wiring stung their eyes mercilessly. Still, Dr. Keene stood frozen in place, her impeccably manicured hand hovering above the fire alarm, reluctant to pull it. "We can't spark a panic," she whispered, her voice taut. Miss Langley's broadcast filled the space. "Are you serious?" Tessa's voice cracked with raw disbelief. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her jeans pocket, pulling out her phone, hands shaking as she hit record. The camera caught every moment the creeping smoke, Kaiser's fierce protective stance, and most damningly Dr. Keene's paralysis. Owen stepped up, his firefighter instincts kicking in. This isn't up for debate anymore. "The electrical fire is spreading inside the walls. We have to evacuate now." The smoke thickened, swallowing the room. Through the haze, Tessa saw Beatrice Langley's face shift from irritation to real fear as she backed away from the sparking panel. The woman's camera crew had already fled, leaving their gear behind. "My son can't breathe," Tessa murmured, holding her phone steady, recording each heartbeat near Aeon's crib. The baby's monitor screamed the falling oxygen levels, urgent beeps cascading like a warning siren. Hollis sprang into action, her hands moving with honed precision over Ian's fragile medical gear. "We have to disconnect him, right?" she said delicately, removing the IV line while keeping the portable oxygen running. One false move. A sudden crackle and loud pop exploded from the electrical panel, making everyone jump. Sparks rained down, and the smoke thickened instantly. Kaiser barked fiercely and rushed to the corridor door, using his broad frame to hold it open as staff hurried past. "Get that dog out of here," Dr. Keene shouted, but her words were swallowed by the blaring fire alarms. Someone else had pulled the switch at last. Owen moved briskly, aiding Hollis in securing Aeon to the portable unit. "Tessa, keep recording," he urged. "We need proof of what's happening here." Tessa's hands trembled as she captured the horror unfolding the spreading smoke. Kaiser's vigilant shield, Dr. Keene's frozen hesitation, and Beatrice Langley's frantic retreat. Most crucially, she filmed the formula cart Kaiser had warned them about earlier, making sure the labels and batch numbers were crystal clear. With a hiss, the sprinkler system kicked in, bathing the room in streams of water that soaked the costly medical equipment. Dr. Keene let out a frustrated cry as the water drenched her silk blouse. Yet still she made no move to help. Dr. Keene cried out in frustration as her silk blouse soaked through. Yet she made no move to intervene. "Ready?" Hollis called out, fastening the final portable monitor. "We have to move now." Owen took command of the transport unit while Hollis vigilantly watched Ian's vital signs. Tessa kept pace beside them, her phone still rolling, capturing every moment as they pressed through the thickening haze in the corridor. Kaiser led the charge, his low growls urging everyone to clear the path ahead. Smoke thickened fast, cutting visibility down to just a few feet. The sprinklers unleashed a disorienting